Hello and welcome back, I'm Thomas. Today we're building this Lotus Honda 99T 1987 F1 car from Hella in 1/43rd. Not too many parts, but it should turn out to look pretty nice. I've sprayed it here in Tamiya Camel Yellow. You've got some kit decals and I've also got a range of camel decals. Let's get started. First thing I'm doing is I'm using the kit decals. You've got 12 for Senna or 11 for Nakajima. I'm making this Senna's car. The kit decals were very difficult. I found that they just wouldn't come off the backing paper. It's a good idea to use very warm water, and then if you use a very sharp craft blade, that can help remove it from the backing paper. So I'm trying to get these the right size. The blue isn't an exact match, but it's pretty close. The camel decals should really have a silver trim around the outside, though not all of them do. Most of the large ones do, though. This used the Honda Turbo V6 engine, which Senna would then carry over to McLaren in 1988. Looks pretty good, I think. The camel decals on the side of the cockpit need to face forward on both sides. Decided to cut these ones for the rear wing into two parts to make them lay down as well as possible. Used UMP strong decal solution to help them sort of flatten down, also gave them a bit of a roll with wet cotton bud. The kit decal comes with Lotus decals in these places, which we used at some events where cigarette advertising was banned. There we are. I'm pretty happy with that. I'll clear coat it now and add some detail. Here I'm using matte black from Revell for the suspension parts. I also painted the inside of the cockpit in black, and later on I do around where the instrument display is. This section here will have the rear spoiler, and there's also the light that goes on the back. I'll paint that in silver and then clear red later on. The suspension arms at this point in Formula 1 were not yet carbon fibre. They were generally painted black. There, I'm pretty happy with that. Now the wheels were painted in semi-gloss black, and then some of the races they had this silver trim around the edge. Some of them they had a yellow circle on the inside, but there were no decals for that. I'm using a Posca paint pen, silver. It's very useful for this kind of job. Then you've got the four tyres. Larger ones go at the back, obviously. Now it's a really good idea to assemble these and to put them onto the axles before adding decals, because they need a little bit of force to get onto the hubs and then a bit of force to get onto the axles as well, so you don't want to damage the decals by doing that bit first. I also added a little bit of silver in the middle just for the locking wheel nut. So push down as carefully as you can. Could always add a little bit of washing up liquid to help make this easier, but they went on okay. And here's just a little test fit. Most of the bottom needs to be yellow with a few black accents. I also did the inside of the radiators in silver. And here's a little test fit. And with the front and rear wing as well. I think that looks pretty good for a kit with very few parts. It was then time to do the Goodyear Eagle decals. Now again, I used very hot water and left them in for about 15 to 20 seconds. Then used a really new craft blade, very carefully slid underneath the film on the side. These decals are very old and they just didn't want to come off the paper very well. You can get decals from websites like InDecals, who do them in various different sizes, but they do warn you that they may not be perfect fit for scales smaller than 1/20th. So the driver figure here is Senna. Here he is. Has a slightly lighter yellow than the bodywork, especially for the helmet, so I did that all in gloss yellow. And then I used some matte clear on his overalls. Here I'm using a very thin brush and some satin blue for the seat belts. His gloves were red on the outside, boots were blue. I also did the inside of his visor in blue and used a bit of flat flesh on the bit of his face that it is exposed. Then got the helmet decal, which wraps around like so. I did think about removing the Lotus logo and trying to add a camel logo instead, but I thought that this was fine. So added a little bit of white on his arms and a camel decal. Also printed out some National decals for his helmet. Looks pretty good. Now I've got this clear packaging here which had some custard tarts in it. I cut out a small curved section and checked it for size, trimmed it and also wrapped it around a paintbrush to help get the right size. Here I used a little bit of clear gloss paint on either side to work as glue and then kind of squeezed the helmet visor on either side. Then finally I got a little bit of blue tape and put that across the top for the little sort of sun strip. I think that's pretty good. Certainly a lot better than it came looking in the kit. Got steering wheel, added some green and red switches and buttons. Also added a little bit of panel liner to the sort of holes in the top. Here I'm using super glue to glue Senna into place. And then giving it a test fit with the rear and front tyres. Let me know what you think. Then it's time to fit this all together. Bodywork actually goes on really nicely and there's minimal need for glue. There's a slight opening at the back just underneath the rear, where the rear spoiler goes, so I did add some glue to that place. And it also rolls. Here you can see where I've added the clear red to make the rear light, and I also printed off some small camel decals for these front parts of the wing, as they didn't have them in the right size in the decal sheet. Then got the roll hoop which goes in the top. This needed to be sanded down a little bit as it was a little too large. And then for the intakes for the turbos on either side, I sanded the yellow off the end and added some matte black for the openings. Make sure to give things like this a test fit before putting them in place. I'm using some foam safe super glue to attach them on. It's a common feature in the 1980s turbo cars to have the air intakes on top of the side boxes like these. And I also added a little bit of florist's wire for a radio aerial on top of the roof. Then we've got some very small wing mirrors, which were done in yellow, black and silver. Again, I used some foam safe super glue to fit these into place. This was very fiddly work, but they went on quite nicely. What do you think? Then added some more super glue to attach the front wing. Should have painted this black underneath, but just forgot. And the same for the rear wing. The underside of the rear wing needed a little bit of sand to flatten it out to help it sit as nicely as possible. And there we have it, it's finished. I'm pretty happy with this. This was a really fun little kit, which in spite of the difficult decals, I think has gone together quite nicely. The additional cigarette markings has made it look a lot better, I think. I've got a couple more of these to build, the McLaren and the Williams, and I'll be on the hunt for more in the future. I'm a big fan of Hella's 1/43 kits. Let me know if you've built any of these yourself, what you thought of them, what you think of mine, if you'd build one yourself. Thanks a lot for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe. Click the notification bell, and I'll see you soon.